for couples that, may have been married for a few years, we go around saying, girl, when you gonna have them children? You ain't getting no younger, And for me, I was in my early 20s. I was in my early 20s and early 30s. And I was dealing with this issue. People were like, you don't want to wait till you're 30 to have kids now, your biological clock ticking. And there was even somebody who was bold enough to ask me, hey, is your husband shooting blanks?
Oh, wow.
And these are things that we say casually or off the cuff that we have to recognize truly is inappropriate. And so here we are today, hopefully changing the narrative around this conversation.
Yes. I have been guilty of that myself. My wife and I, we have 4 children. And it comes from a place of, I want to see you happy. I want to see you fruitful and multiplying. But in that moment, I'm just maybe negligent in, hey, they might be going through something which is not allowing that. It ain't my business. Just keep your mouth shut, throw away the key, right? So we've heard a lot about the book. We've heard a lot about how it can help those who've been going through similar struggles with infertility. Tell us about your upcoming book signing event. I think this is very exciting.
Yes, it is. One thing I have to say is Bahamian people know how to support their own. I am a daughter of the soil, even though I reside in the US, but I had a book signing on Friday at Logos Bookstore in Harbor Bay. And I also had a book signing on yesterday at the Oasis Bookstore at the Miles E. Monroe Diplomat Center. And both events were absolutely amazing. The individuals came out, individuals have been sharing the story. And I think we are at a point right now in our community where we are recognizing the need to really continue the conversation on this particular issue. And so the book signing event was at those locations and the book is in those stores. However, on Tuesday, my final stop on my book tour here in the Bahamas will be at the Black Food Bookstore and Culture Shop on East and Robinson Road. So I was a little strategic in terms of locations of where the book is located at. You got it on the east end of the island at Harbor Bay at Logos, and then on the west side down there at the Diplomat Center at Oasis Bookside. And now we'll be going to the center of the city here on East and Robinson Road at the Black Food Bookstore and Culture Shop.
Yes, I love that shop. I stop in there probably about once a month to grab myself a nice shirt, a book. I get something for my wife. I love that shop. Make sure you all visit the book signing event and pick up something while you're there at the Black Food Shop.
Yes, absolutely.
For our people. So where will the book be available as we close? If people want to find this book, where can they get it?
Yes, so the book is available on Amazon as well. We know we have Bahamians who shop Amazon all the time, so they can definitely find the book there on Amazon. Also, the book is, as I mentioned, at the Logos Bookstore in Harbor Bay. It is also at the Oasis Bookstore at the Miles E. Monroe Diplomat Center, and it is also going to be available as of tomorrow at the Black Food Bookstore and Culture Shop on East and Robinson Road.
Awesome. This has been so fantastic. Dr. Taz, I learned so much from you this morning and looking forward to your book hitting the streets, for you being at the Black Food Shop tomorrow on Tuesday, and just for your continued success and for persons to really, continue this discussion in their homes, to continue it in public forums, to realize that there are a lot of people who suffer from this condition who are carrying some of those scars, as you've mentioned. And we need to be a little more sensitive, be our brothers and sisters keeper, and pick up this book from Dr. Taz, because he can tell you everything you need to know, all of business.
Everything. Holding nothing back. And like I said, let's continue the conversation. Let's get out there. And also you can reach me on my website, Dr. Taz, doctor spelled all the way out, DoctorTazz.com, where also I am available for additional speaking engagement events or promotion of this particular topic.
Fantastic. Dr. Taz discussing her book, The Secrets of Faith, Infertility, An Untold Journey of Faith, Fertility, and Favor. Y'all see her at the Black Food Shop on Tuesday. Get your book signed. Thank you for joining us this morning, Dr. Taz.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're watching Moms at Sunrise. We'll be right back.
Cecilia Pediatrics is a pediatric office with an atmosphere of family-centered patient care. Our physicians are handpicked for their clinical skills, wide knowledge base, and professional bedside manner. We specialize in school physicals, well child, and sick visits up to 21 years of age. In addition, we offer neonatology and newborn services with Dr. Yana Menz-Rojo and complex care with Dr. Yashika E. Seymour. We are conveniently located opposite ZNES in the Hilltop Medical Complex. Stop by today and let our family care for yours.
Our world has changed. Many businesses have been closed for months with little or no access to their customers until now. Rev Media can help you remain connected to your customers. Our trusted customized advertising packages and personalized consultants will provide your business with immeasurable support during this challenging time. Your customers are already watching. Rev Media can help you to remain connected. Call us today. Let us help you.
I used to think of the bank as my personal ATM machine. If I wanted a new car, new furniture, a weekend trip to Miami, no problem, just max out the credit card or top up my loan. I was a big baller until I realized that 75% of my salary was going to pay back all those loans. Fidelity's personal financial coaching was the best solution. Fidelity gave me a plan with a debt consolidation loan that has a built-in savings that pays 5% interest. I now only have one low monthly payment plus money in my pocket. Give Fidelity Bank a call at 356-7764 in Nassau or 352-6676 in Freeport. Visit any of Fidelity's locations or visit a website at fidelitygroup.com.
Welcome back. Earlier this month, we spoke with entrepreneur Nicole Johnson about her funeral services business, Le Pavilion Interment and Mausoleum in Grand Bahama. Here is that story again. Enjoy. Welcome back. Le Pavilion Interment and Mausoleum offers funeral services and so much more in Grand Bahama. Here to tell us all about it is Nicole Johnson, owner of Le Pavilion and Mausoleum. Good morning and welcome to Bahamas at Sunrise.
Good morning, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Yes, we here having big joke. Oh, I thought you was a restaurant and someone else thought you was a park. So
yes.
It's early. So please forgive us. You're neither of those things.
No.
Please tell us about your funeral services business and why did you decide to go into this business?
Okay, well, the Pavilion is a multifaceted company. It has several services. One of our main services are plots and niche wall services where you have put the cremated bodies, as well as chauffeured services. And we are now getting into the headstones as well. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons I decided, I know over the years, I've had a lot of loss. And so I always thought, even especially in Grand Bahama, that we could have more options. And so I wanted there to be another option so that persons will be able to choose, have a choice of where to go. And so one of my passions was just the service that we provide and making sure that during your difficult times, we are there to help you ease the burden.
Yes, and you use the perfect word there, service. Most persons don't recognize the level of service that goes into the type of business that you have. It's a sensitive time in persons' lives. It's some key or core memories being created for the family and for the friends. And so you really play definitely an important role in that family and in the healing process. And I like you said, you felt like Grand Bahama needed this and you wanted to serve your fellow Grand Bahamians. So tell us a little bit about the services that you offer. You began to mention that.
Okay, yes, we have double plots. The traditional burial usually are plots, which is the underground engraved plots. We have double and single plots. We have a mausoleum wall, which holds niche spaces where you put your cremated remains in the urns. And that's 2 walls we have. And then we also do chauffeur services. Now, a lot of persons think our services are limited to funerals, but we also do weddings, graduations, anniversaries, anything you want to celebrate, we also celebrate that with you. And so we offer that first class red carpet treatment in that regard. And also a lot of places, again, giving options. We're now into making headstones. And so, you know, we wanted to be different. We wanted to let people see that, you know, it can be, I mean, it's a difficult time, but we are here to help guide you through it. Even in our advisory portion, what we do is give you advice on what is the best plot, how you plan your service, where the programs, a whole gamut of other things we do, as well as grief counseling.
Wow, grief counseling. Yeah, you definitely offer full service.
Yes,
and like you said, any reason to celebrate, and you guys are there ready to help. So
Yes.
tell us, how has your business been affected by COVID-19?
Oh, it was shut down just about. The office, in particular, there was hardly any movement. And then also because of the fact the shipping, some of the things that when we began, it was a lot of issues and challenges trying to get stuff in. But thank God we passed that hurdle. And, you know, we are well on our way. We actually did one of our first underground burials a few weeks ago. And, you know, it's just, our whole thing is service and to be there for those families who are grieving. A lot of times it's just stressful, you know, and having to go here, having to go there. And we are really almost a one-stop shop.
That sounds great. Like you said, no one wants to, you know, to have to think too much. And you sound like you're there to help guide people along the way, and also counsel them through this difficult time. So tell us, how did the Access Accelerator help you make your vision a reality?
Well, I think it was 2018 when I heard the ad. Actually, Miss Blair Grant now, the call was made that they were offering classes, and then of course the grants, and that was a pivotal part of it, because even as a woman entrepreneur in this climate, you don't get that support financially from banks and a lot of the lending institutions. And I'm happy to say that they supported us, they backed us financially, and they made the way smoother, even in terms of transitioning to other financial institutions. You know, they made the funding possible. And of course, even in their advice, post and pre and post advisory service, they, SBDC, the AA team, they have been my full supporters. They've been my advocates in the whole thing.
That's perfect. We've heard so many great stories about the Access Accelerator program, and so many local Bahamian businesses that they have helped to get off the ground and get started, bringing people's visions to reality. Do you enjoy being an entrepreneur and owning your own business?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I think my background is financial and business oriented. And that just kept in line. This is really not my first business, but this is certainly the bigger one in terms of the expansion and everything. But it just gives you a good feeling of ownership, and the fact that I can make a difference in my community, you know, and in people's lives. That's what I want to be able to touch the lives and make them better. And that gives me a good feeling.
Wow, you really sound like you're in the perfect business. And you keep saying service, 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 and you definitely have the personality for it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what do you say to persons who have a business idea but don't know what to do next?
Well, I suggest you go to SBDC. They are able to, you know, even as small as you may think your vision is. Right. And if you have somebody who could be able to encourage you, you know, to know that, you know, this can be a reality. 2018, I would have never thought this would expand and explode to what it is today. You know, I say, oh, well, maybe, you know, I'll do something nice and and all of that. But, that is not where the Lord actually led me to do, but with SBDC and the Accelerator, they really push you forward. And like I say, the biggest advocates, because when you reach some of those hurdles or you have some challenges, or even when you doubt yourself, there are persons there who encourage you along the way, who, cheer you on. And, it's just, we're a family now. That's how it turned out to be, especially the groups here in Grand Bahama, and I just want to shout out to my biggest advocate, advisor, Charmaine Johnson. She has been stellar in my life. And in terms of standing by and holding my hand and saying, Nicole, you could do this. This can happen. You're going to break trends and records. And that's what we've been doing.
Yes, well, you've very well said, very inspirational. I'm so happy to hear your story and hear how the Access Accelerator program has helped you. I'd like to thank you, Nicole Johnson, owner of Le Pavilion and Mausoleum, for being up with us this morning, there early on a Friday. I still ain't wake up yet. I still didn't use a restaurant. I'm hungry. Thank you for joining us on the show.
But you could come to our niche wall.
There you go.
And we also have a gazebo, so whenever you're ready.
Perfect. You're watching Bahamas at Sunrise. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
In the Bahamas, small business is big business. More than 90% of the businesses in the Bahamas are classified as micro, small, or medium-sized enterprises, or MSMEs. The Access Accelerator Small Business Development Center was created to serve them. We at the Access Accelerator offer a variety of services to our clients: business advisory services, training and entrepreneurial programming, mentorship and incubation, and advocacy.
Join the Click is an initiative started by Cable Bahamas Business Solutions last year when we were trying to figure out how to help business leaders as well as consumers to stay connected. Working with Canoe, working with other partners, working with the government and My Gateway to help them to connect with customers who want to place orders and want to be able to do things in a digital way.
My Gateway. My Gateway is a groundbreaking portal through which clients can request and pay for government services online. We have 28 services. We expect to increase the number of services to a minimum of 200.
I love that we're helping the government and helping our citizens to be more efficient and to use their time more wisely.
I invite you to sign up for mygateway.gov.bs and let us make government work for you. Join the Click.
Welcome back to the show. You're watching Bahamas at Sunrise, and we're at the mid-show. We've had a great couple of segments in the first half of the show. We spoke to Dr. Taz about her book, speaking on infertility, and I'm very excited about that book. Very excited for her, very excited for persons who have gone through miscarriages or suffer from infertility and silence and haven't had an avenue to express themselves, find comfort, and find somebody to just talk to, or just to know that someone else has been through that same condition. So very excited about her book, very excited about her book signing at the Black Food Shop this Tuesday. And then also speaking to entrepreneur Nicole Johnson about Le Pavilion. Once again, looking at an industry and a business that she has a passion for, that she decided to step out. You know, as I said in the beginning of the show, if you don't shoot your shot, you can't score. And so very excited to talk to Nicole. But we have an exciting second half of the show coming up. I will be discussing economic freedom with KARLOS MACKEY. And we're also going to talk more science and perspective with Dr. ANCILLENO Davis. We also want to encourage you to support our Godfrey Burnside and his salsa at his church, the Most Holy Trinity, this Saturday, July 23rd, from 6 a.m. to 12 noon. Support the Usher Ministry by purchasing any of their delicious sauces or conch chowder. As I say, go buy some conch chowder, go buy some sauce, support Godfrey and the Usher Ministry. And speaking of Godfrey, let's take a second look at weather with Brother Burnside.
Weather at Sunrise, brought to you by Bahamas First. What's first for you comes first for us.
Thank you, Mark, and good morning, Bahamas. And yes, take a look at weather at sunrise. Tropical weather update. The tropics remain quiet, and the tropical cyclone formation are not expected during the next 5 days. A local scene, high pressure in the northeast, will bring some stable and dry conditions around the islands and filtering in some Sahara dust along with it. So today, though in the marine forecast, those winds southerly at 10 to 15 knots, sea 2 to 4 feet of northwest Bahamas, east to southeast at 15 knots, sea 2 to 5 feet of central Bahamas, 15 to 20 knots, seas 4 to 7 feet over the southeastern islands. On Tuesday, those winds become variable at 10 knots or less, seas less than 3 feet of northwest Bahamas, easterly at 15 knots, seas 2 to 5 feet over the central and southeastern islands. On the Wednesday, continue variable at 10 knots or less, seas less than 3 feet over the northwest Bahamas, east-southeast at 15 knots, seas 2 to 5 feet over the central and southeastern islands. Your tides, just out of Rowan at 6:24 this morning. Next high tide will be at 32 minutes past midday. Low gain this evening at 6:43. Sunset will be at 8 p.m. this evening. Rises more at 6:30. UVMX 9, your water temperature 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Honeymoon phase now moving towards the last quarter. The external look, high pressure continues to be a dominant feature with the Sahara dust. So stable conditions through Thursday. Partly sunny, hot, humid, hazy. Chance of an afternoon shower thunderstorm. On the weekend, mix of sun and clouds with a couple of more showers. No temperature daytime will be in the low 90s. At nighttime, in the upper 70s. Your heat index will continue to be in the triple digits. That's what you're up on your phone. Look at weather sunrise. I'm Crafty Burnside. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you, Godfrey. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. These are well-known lyrics from the great Bob Marley. And as we celebrate 49 years of independence this month, we want to explore whether we are free from financial or economic slavery as a people. Here to discuss this with us is KARLOS MACKEY, Executive Director and President of Money Max Co. and President of Prime Financing and Consulting. Good morning and welcome back to Bahamas at Sunrise, KARLOS.
Mark, thank you all so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here with you.
Yes, always a pleasure talking with you as well. I always learn so much. And we're talking about this idea of economic freedom. So, many societal ills can be traced to poverty and low income, such as illness, homelessness, and crime. So how do we as a people start to focus on being free financially and developing a healthy personal and national economy?
I think when you talk about financial freedom, economic freedom, there are really three pillars of that. First and foremost, there has to be what I would call grounding principles. So for some people and for our country, really, in our preamble, it says that we have abiding respect for, Judeo-Christian principles and the rule of law, right? So first and foremost, as a people, you need grounding principles. If you don't have something to center you, you pretty much can be all over the place, right? So first and foremost, you need centering principles. The second thing is the Bible. I'm a Christian and the Bible tells you my people perish for lack of knowledge. So education is extremely important. I think that we give education a lot of lip service, but we don't really think about what education means. We have a lot of people going through the school system. They're not actually learning how to be able to be properly functional. They are learning how to be job functional, but they're not necessarily learning how to be life functional. So we give them the very basic level of competency to be able to go on a job and get a paycheck, but we aren't actually training them how to be able to live, to be people, to be innovative, to creative, to be what I would call properly contributing members to society. And the third part of it is personal responsibility. People have to take personal responsibility. There is a decision that you make to make a budget or to not make a budget. There is a decision that you make to follow your budget or not to follow your budget. But again, budgeting kind of portends that you've already had a level of education around why and how to manage your finances, right? So again, grounding principles, education, and then personal responsibility. That is how we actually would turn our country around It is very easy to prescribe it, but it will take a lot of effort for us to actually roll it out. But if we simply said those are the three things we're focused on, we would make a lot of progress over the next 20 years, because it'll take about 20 years for us to really see any impact.
Very important points you mentioned there about the pillars in our country. If you look at our country, important and definitely on a personal level, as you've just mentioned. So what percentage of our population would you say have healthy financial goals? And for those who don't, how can we improve?
Well, you have some persons or some research that was put out several years ago that said that only, I think it was 25 or 30% of persons in the country maintain bank balances on a monthly basis of more than $1,000 or $5,000 a month, right? Which is, when you think about that, I'll put that in perspective. If 80% of your people aren't able to have $1,000 or $2,000 on their bank account, that really tells you how bad of a situation that we're in. So sometimes, though, you may have somebody that doesn't have a large bank balance, but they're extremely, what I would call proficient in meeting their budget, paying their bills, paying off debts. So that is situational. I would probably say that we're about 1/3 around the place where people, because of wealth and accumulated earnings, or because of budgeting and being responsible spenders, are probably in a relatively safe financial position. Some of those persons are living paycheck to paycheck, but they're doing it in a very disciplined way, trying to pay off debt. So I would say we're probably at a place where about 1/3 of our population. The other 2/3 are probably even less than a paycheck away from financial ruin, because for a large percentage of that 2/3, they are simply rolling over high interest, short-term debt in order to be able to continue to make ends meet.
So how can we improve for those of us who may not have healthy financial goals?
Again, we go back to the whole issue of discipline. We are in a very consumer, what I would call consumer-driven society in terms of the way that we think and the way that we behave. And there has to be a level of commitment to oneself and to one's future. And particularly if you have children, to their future, to put yourself in a position to be able to do more. We have to emphasize saving, not necessarily for a, what we would call treasure, right? A lot of people think of money as a treasure. Money isn't a treasure, money is a tool. The more you have of it, the more you can do that is productive, right? You always have people say it takes money to make money. Well, it takes money to educate your children. It takes money to be able to live comfortably in retirement. We see that NIB, the fund, they're telling us that we're going to have to increase contributions in order for there to be a NIB when you and I get to the place where we're going to be retired, God willing, right? So there's a real level of personal responsibility that has to be taken on the individual side. On the public policy side, we can have some conversations around mandatory savings plans, whether or not we should do something where if you're going to increase the NIB rate, that a specific portion of that goes into a, let's call it a managed fund that's managed by some professional firm that the individual is able to choose. There are a lot of options around what we can do from a policy perspective, but by and large, a lot of this starts with the individual saying, you know what, let me take some responsibility for my financial future.
Self-discipline, and we're going back to those pillars that you spoke about. So there's a policy report that states that job creation through MSMEs will often directly benefit the poor and vulnerable, thereby directly reducing poverty, increasing income, and positively impacting household investments. So discussing ownership, are we an entrepreneurial society? Why or why not?
We aspire to be, but we're not. Our policy framework does not really support entrepreneurs. Our capital markets don't really support entrepreneurship. So we aspire to be. You have Bahamians that want to be entrepreneurs. We don't have what I would call a proper venture capital, private equity ecosystem. We don't have what I would call enough gumption. The folk that we would call it, let's say, who control the levels of capital, they like to play essentially a game where the game is rigged and it's stacked in their favor. That's not how you grow an economy. You have to grow an economy by taking chances. We are in a situation where for the last 20 years or so, some estimates are that, or 25 years really, some estimates are that our economy essentially either grows somewhere between 2% or -2%. So we're essentially flat. For the last 20, 25 years, real economic growth, not nominal economic growth, but real actual economic growth is essentially flat. So it's flat because we live in a system where everybody is trying to, I guess you can say, make sure that their interests are covered. So you have a lot of industries and a lot of situations where people want monopolies, people want, 40-year lockups of this and that, and 25-year lockups of this and that, and they're the only ones that can do something in this particular area. That does not allow for competition. The lack of competition does not spur innovation. The lack of innovation does not spur what we would see as higher productivity and therefore higher saleability and even the potential for Bahamians to become exporters of both talent and services and products. So when we sit down and think about what's happening in our economy, yes, Bahamians aspire to be entrepreneurs, but both from a policy perspective and from a capital markets perspective, we don't really have a system that supports true, vibrant entrepreneurship.
So happy you're on the show and to get that perspective. I've never thought about it in that light. I would think about it as in primary school, you always had that entrepreneur, that budding entrepreneur that was selling some candy out their bag, that might have had some baseball cards they would trade in, or selling little chips and snacks. And I always admired that because I've seen a few of my friends who from primary school, they kept that entrepreneurial spirit going and they're business owners today. So I feel we do have the spirit, but as you said, the framework isn't there to really develop and support it so that we can blossom and grow the economy holistically, right?
Absolutely.
So last point I want to talk about is brain drain. I had the chance to study abroad. I assume yourself and many other of our colleagues studied abroad, and you have that decision whether or not you move back home. We do lose a number of our best and brightest when they do go to study. Do you think that this is significant, and how can we turn that around?
It is extremely significant. So like you said, both you and I, we would have studied abroad. Some of us, 2 or 3 times, depending on what level of education you would have attained. We are in a situation where, yes, I've had both peers and family members literally ask me, and even I've had persons in public life ask me, why have I returned home? With the education that I have and the work experience that I've had abroad, why have I come home? For me personally, I'm home because I love it here. But there are some persons that, love of country is not going to be enough. That's a fact. And we have to be prepared to say, okay, if someone isn't going to be here, one, are we okay with that? There are pockets of our society that control the levers of power in our economy and in our financial sector who are actually okay with, again, lack of competition. The less of our best and brightest that come home allow people to stay in managerial and executive roles where they're not providing a lot of value. So the reality is there are some people that are actually fine with the fact that we don't have our best and brightest coming home. Because again, this goes back to education. It goes back to grounding principles. We have a lot of people running organizations in our country from a scarcity mentality, as opposed to looking at our economy and saying, you know what, we should try to get back the 50,000 or so educated persons that live abroad, because with that 50,000, we can double or triple our GDP and economic output. But again, if you're only looking at it from the perspective of, I don't want somebody to come and take what's mine, you're not going to do what's needed to be done for all of us to grow and to get better. So there's a lot of work to be done for us to attract persons to come back home. A lot of that is going to require, one, again, we're going to have to be very serious about making sure that capital is available for entrepreneurship. 2, there's going to have to be a level of competitiveness around all positions and people not simply graduating or grandfathering into positions and what we would call power. And 3, there has to be a level of willingness for us to change our policy framework around what it means for this economy to grow. We have, for instance, a financial services sector. Our GDP is about $12 billion a year, right? You have, I'll give you an example of one company that we as our country recently used to do some financing for us, Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs has somewhere around 140,000 employees, and their annual revenues dwarf our annual GDP. Wow. So if you think about it from one company in financial services, right? And we sit down and we don't have, if you simply even looked at it from a scale perspective, they have about 140,000 employees and contractors all over the world. If we simply look at it and said, you know what, could we have one company that on a scale factor, because if you take the US scale and break it down and you said on a scale factor, do we have one company that has roughly 100 employees that is making, let's call it $1 billion a year, or that has 1,000 employees that's making $1 billion a year? Are we in a place where as Bahamians, we aspire to have that kind of thing? Until we get to that place where we say, you know what, in every industry, we want 4 or 5 of those companies, especially in financial services and tourism. We're not at the place where we're really ready to see this country grow. And we aren't at the place where Bahamians can really say, I have a real shot at economic independence. So until we get there mentally, as it says, we got to free ourselves from mental slavery. We're not really going to get there.
KARLOS, Mackey, man, I always enjoy talking to you. You have so much to share, so much, you're very visionary, innovative in your thoughts, and direct and straightforward. Always enjoy conversations with you. Today, we're talking about emancipating ourselves from economic slavery along with mental slavery. So I'd like to thank you again for coming on Bahamas at Sunrise. KARLOS Mackey, Executive Director and President of Money Max Co. and President of Prime Financing and Consulting. Thanks again for joining us this morning, my brother.
Always a pleasure. And again, God bless the Bahamas. Happy independence. We have the best little country in the world, but in order to be better, we have to do better.
Amen. Amen. You're watching Bahamas at Sunrise. We'll be right back.
One thing, two things, blue thing, all things, things that are small, things that are grand, things that fit just right, and in the palm of your hand. Fox Hill Nursery, a large selection of garden supplies. If you can see it in your mind, you can find it at Fox Hill Nursery.
The sports we play depend on the health we build. So let's stay healthy. Wear a mask and practice social distancing and hand washing to protect yourself and others. Remember, COVID-19 is not a game.
A public service message from the Bahamas Olympic Committee.
Welcome back. Science and Perspective brings formal and academic science through the lens of Bahamian culture and lived experience. Back for more great discussions is my good friend, Dr. ANCILLENO Davis, CEO and owner of Science and Perspective. Good morning and welcome back to Bahamas at Sunrise, Lino.
Good morning again, Mark, and good morning, Bahamas. I'm definitely happy to be back here and to share some of my adventures recently, as well as some ideas on how we can be better scientists, all of us.
That's why we have you here. So tell our viewers, remind us again, what is Science and Perspective all about?
Generally, science is presented in the media and in school very formally, and it's very stagnant sometimes, and sometimes we can't relate it to our own Bahamian lives. And so I'm trying to make sure that Bahamians recognize the value of science, as well as just appreciation for our own native environment, so that we can then, share with others and even just enjoy it a little bit better for ourselves.
I agree 100%. And, a part of that, and we began this discussion the last time we were on, is the naming of, the wildlife that's around us, the naming of the flora and the fauna, or taxonomy, as we refer to it in the scientific realms. The names that are ascribed, when you go to biology in high school, they teach you there's a Latin name, and you hear about Carl Linnaeus and the binomial nomenclature system and all of that. And you get these Latin names, which if you understand how to interpret it, you know what it's saying. But, you know, I'm going up to somebody in Ragged Island and telling them that what they call sand flea bush is Rachicalis americana. That doesn't resonate. So give me your perspective on taxonomy of native and endemic, you know, species here in the Bahamas.
So taxonomy to me just means that you can tell the difference between this thing and that thing. And the names that you use for the two different things are not the same.
Right.
That's basically it. So for example, a lot of people don't know that a white-tailed tropic bird actually saved Christopher Columbus' life and led to the discovery of the Bahamas.
Whoa.
Because they was about to mutiny and kill this dude. And then one guy who was up in the top of the crow's nest on the ship, he said, hey, I see a tropic bird. And they only live within a few miles of land. So there must be land nearby.
There you go.
And so that gave Columbus a stay of execution and led to all of what we have here in the Bahamas now. Right?
Sounds like that guy was a Bahamian.
Well, that's the thing. These birds are around the world and they have a certain behavior, and that leads to them having a certain body build and type. And so when you are out at sea, you know, just knowing one bird could help you get to land or help you survive. You knowing the difference between certain types of fish, that could help you to know this one is more likely to get you that food poisoning and this one is less likely, right? There's so much to know. You know, sometimes people in the Bahamas, I've seen people get more injuries running from animals that they don't understand, when if they had just calmed down and looked at it a little bit, they could say, oh, that's one of our Bahamian brown races. They cool. That ain't no cobra or nothing, you know, and instead of going and bucking your toe, tripping down and things like that. So sometimes taxonomy can literally save your life. And you as a plant person, you know, knowing what type of tree you can eat versus which one is going to give you a rash, that can be pretty important.
Yeah, you don't want to be in the bush looking for some TP and you grab yourself some manchineel or some touch me not, right?
No. Dude, I just met touch me not for the first time like a week and a half ago, and it is not pleasant.
And speaking of taxonomy, that's one right there where the name says it all. You know, I could say to somebody that's Malpighia, but and you tell them that's touch me not, and then they touch the plant, they can see why it's called touch me not. So tell me, Lino, Dr. Davis, in terms of learning about the Bahamian environment, what do you think is the best way to introduce young persons, older persons, persons who aren't sciencey or into biology? What do you think is the best way to reach them about the importance and just learning about the Bahamian environment?
So that's actually kind of what I specialize in. I talk to young people, I go into classrooms, I go into like youth groups and church groups. And before I even dive into science, I'm asking them, hey, what do you actually want to do? What's your passion? And then they tell me about music, and I tell them how I use eBird data to make a dubstep track. And your followers can see the dubstep track if they look for eBird dubstep remix on YouTube.
That was cool.
And they can see some bird images. I ask students, you know, do you like using computers and computer programming? And I tell them about all these really cool facial recognition and image recognition software that allow us to identify birds using photos that people capture in the field. Or for you to identify plants through a picture of a leaf, right? Students get really engaged when you show them that it isn't just about remembering a bunch of scientific names. And you talk to an art student and you ask them if they appreciate those photocopied images of the lignum vitae and yellow elder inside their books that you can't really identify the plant from. And they say, no, it has no color, it has no texture. And you say, why don't you take some good photos of it? And so these students, they get to appreciate it through their perspective and their understanding of the world, and they engage in their own way. And that's where you get an artist becomes a scientist. You get a computer programmer engages with science and the Bahamian environment. You get a musically inclined student. Now they're making a song about these scientific names that were hard for them to remember, but now you're also talking to this language student who recognizes, whoa, that scientific name is almost like the Spanish name, and you can understand it better. And all students have some way that you can engage them with science. And even the religious students, I asked them, what's the first commandment that God gave to people? And everyone thinks it's the first of the 10 commandments. And I say, no, the first thing he said was to name all the plants and animals. So God said, be taxonomists, be scientists first.
So I just want to touch on one more point before we have to go. So we talked about how science and perspective can help students, but what about, you know, persons involved in various industries where they're interacting with the Bahamian environment on a daily basis, and they're not officially or formally trained as scientists, but they have the observations. So we're talking about fishers, we're talking about hunters, we're talking about those who extract any resource from the Bahamian environment. How do you approach someone who is informally trained in nature with the formalities of science and find that middle ground?
A lot of times it's really being objective with your observations and saying, you know, this thing that I see, what assumptions have I made already? Am I already assuming that this is the only type of fish that I can catch? Am I already assuming that these animals are pest species before I even try to figure out how are they interacting with my building and stuff like that? I work with a lot of building owners and businesses actually that have to interact with the animals in their environment. And a lot of it, after I explain to them why this animal is behaving in a certain way, because of how the humans are behaving or treating their environment, a lot of them have that aha moment, and they can incorporate it into the way they build their building, the way they manage their building, keeping a door closed, mopping up the water or removing the water so the animals don't have water to drink, and then they have to go someplace else for that. A lot of things can be really simple when you take into account science. You look around, you make your observations, you come up with ideas for why things are happening, and then you can adjust small things or bigger things and see how it works out. But sometimes there's a lot of people who already did those experiments, and we can just have a discussion and find out what's the best way for us to live better in our Bahamian environment and get the things that we need and live more successfully.
I love that, man. Dr. Davis, always great talking to you, talking science and perspective here. Dead early in Bahamas at Sunrise. We unfortunately have to go, but we're going to bring you back on again because we all need a little more science and perspective in our lives. So thank you again, Dr. Davis, for joining us on Bahamas at Sunrise.
Thank you very much. Live well, Bahamas.
And you can find Dr. Davis online. You can see his handle at Sci Perspective. Look for him on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and all over the place. Look for the hat.
All right.
You're watching Bahamas at Sunrise. We'll be right back.
Thanks.
That's it for us today on another edition of Bahamas at Sunrise. Thank you for joining us dead early on this marvelous Monday. Go forth and enjoy your week. Plant a seed, eat a mango, eat some cup, eat some canap, and I'll see you on Friday. See you later.